Okay, so let's unpack this. Today we're taking a real deep dive, into the incredibly rich and complex history of the Indian subcontinent.
Hmm.
We're going to trace how nations formed and evolved there, stretching from these powerful medieval empires
Mm-hmm.
right up to the foundational years of Pakistan.
Yeah, and the sources we have, they give a really comprehensive look, don't they? Full of, like, surprising facts and those pivotal moments.
Absolutely. And our mission really is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge for you so you can really get a handle on this vibrant region.
What's truly fascinating here is just the sheer sweep of history we'll cover. We're moving from the arrival of influential figures like Muhammad Ghouri through the rise and fall of great empires, the whole colonial era, the struggle for independence, and then those early constitutional challenges of a brand new nation. This deep dive, I think, will really highlight how these layered historical forces, well, they continue to shape the present day. It reveals this enduring legacy of centuries past.
Right, so we're kicking things off with a pretty significant chapter back in the late 12th century, with Sultan Shahabuddin Muhammad Ghouri. Now, you might associate him with maybe one decisive battle, but our sources highlight something a bit more nuanced. He actually fought two crucial battles against Prithviraj Chauhan.
That's right.
In 1191, Ghouri faced a pretty significant defeat. But then, showing this remarkable resilience, maybe strategic thinking, he came back in 1192 and decisively defeated Prithviraj. This wasn't just, a single battle. It feels like a real pivot point.
Mm-hmm.
Ghouri himself met his end later, 1206, in what's now Hilum, Pakistan. And his tomb is actually located in Sahawa.
That is such a crucial pivot point because Ghouri's campaigns, they didn't just end with a battle victory. They laid the essential groundwork for a whole succession of powerful Muslim dynasties across the subcontinent.
Okay.
Could we connect this to the bigger picture? You see these conquests starting a new era, new governance, new cultural exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see the emergence of what's often called the Delhi Sultanate, which is this period covering 5 distinct dynasties: the Mamluk, Khilji, Tughlaq, Said, and Lodi dynasties. What's truly insightful about these periods, I think, is how they show the sort of fluid social dynamics, the military meritocracy that shaped early Muslim governance in India. It fundamentally altered the region's political landscape.
So these weren't just like new rulers replacing old ones, but fundamentally new ways of organizing society and power.
Exactly, yeah. Take the Mamluk rulers, for instance. Qutb al-Din Aibak. He was a former slave of Ghouri.
A slave, wow.
Yeah, and he rose to become the first sultan of Delhi. His story is, well, it's a testament to how merit and military skill, rather than just traditional lineage, could lead to immense power in this new system. He's also noted for starting construction on the iconic Qutb Minar in Delhi and the Atai Din Ka Chapra Mosque in Ajmer.
Right, I know those landmarks.
And Aibak met a rather unexpected end, died playing polo in Lahore. His tomb's there now in Anarkali Bazaar.
Polo. That's a truly surprising detail for such a powerful figure. What about his successors? Any standouts?
Well, his successor, Shams-ud-Din Iltutmish, often seen as the third Muslim ruler, he further expanded the Delhi Sultanate, and he introduced official currency, sort of solidifying the economic framework of the new state. He also faced a huge external threat, Genghis Khan's invasion of Punjab in 1221, that really tested the young sultanate's resilience.
Yeah, that would be a test.
But maybe the most surprising figure of this whole era is Razia Sultana.
Ah, yes, Razia Sultana.
Reigning from 1236 to 1240, she was the first female Muslim ruler of the Indian subcontinent.
Incredible.
Her rise just speaks volumes about the sometimes unconventional paths to power back then, though her reign, unfortunately, had a tragic end, killed by her own half-brother.
A female ruler in the 13th century. Truly remarkable. How did her male successors navigate things after her? Did things revert?
The reigns that followed, they continue to shape the Sultanate, yeah. Nasiruddin Mahmud, known as the Darwish King, apparently because he was deeply religious, spent time copying the Quran. He largely entrusted state affairs to his very shrewd father-in-law, Ghiyas-ud-Din Balban. Now, Balban, when he eventually took the throne himself, was a strong ruler. Famously broke Chalisa.
Broke Chalisa. What does that mean exactly?
Good question. The Chalisa, it was this powerful council of 40 Turkic nobles. They'd become incredibly influential, sometimes even challenging the Sultan's own authority.
I see. A check on power, maybe?
Or a threat to it. Balban saw it that way. By breaking it, he essentially dismantled their power. He centralized control, reduced the nobles' influence, and set up this network of secret reporters to keep tabs on his administration.
Spies, basically.
You could say that. He was also known for his very strict court-banned wine, even laughter, apparently, projecting this image of, unyielding authority.
So that's a clear move towards a more absolute kind of rule. Okay, so what came after the Mamluks?
Following the Mamluks, we get the Khilji dynasty, roughly 1290 to 1320. Most notable ruler there was Alauddin Khilji. He implemented these incredibly strict price controls on goods, quite a pioneering economic policy for the time, and he even proclaimed himself Sikandar-i-Sani, the second Alexander. Gives you an idea of his vast imperial ambitions across the subcontinent.
If one sends a message.
Then came the Tughlaq dynasty, 1321 to 1388. This included Muhammad bin Tughlaq, quite an intellectual ruler, known for his ambitious, though sometimes maybe ill-fated, administrative experiments. It was actually during his reign that the famous Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta visited India. His writings give us invaluable insights into the period.
Ibn Battuta, right. So we're seeing these dynasties, each leaving their own unique mark on governance, on society.
Precisely. Then the Sayyid dynasty, 1414-1451, they followed. They were actually appointed by Emir Timur after his devastating sack of Delhi in 1398, a period where central authority was really weakened.
Timur's invasion, yeah, that was brutal.
And finally, the Lodi dynasty, 1451-1506. Sikandar Lodi founded the city of Agra and shifted the capital there, a strategic move. He was also apparently an accomplished poet, writing under the name Ghouri. So these dynasties, despite their individual sort of characteristics, collectively represent the complex foundations of Muslim rule, really setting the stage for even grander empires to come.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The Lodi dynasty eventually fell, making way for the magnificent Mughal Empire. This marked a truly new era in the subcontinent's history. That first battle of Panipat in 1526, the clash between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi, that was absolutely crucial. It essentially heralded the start of the Mughal Empire.
And Babur himself is such a fascinating figure. Zahir-ud-Din Muhammad Babar, a direct descendant of both Timur and Genghis Khan.
Wow, quite the lineage.
He had quite an adventurous life even before coming to India, conquered and lost Samarkand multiple times. His autobiography, the Babarnama, it gives this remarkable, really candid insight into his life, his military campaigns. He's also associated with the Babari Masjid in Ayodhya. His son, Nasir-ud-Din Muhammad Humayun, faced immediate challenges, though. Famously defeated by Sher Shah Suri, endured 12 years in exile.
Right.
His biography, the Humayunnama, was actually written by his sister, Gulbadan Begum.
You mentioned Sher Shah Suri. He seems like a pivotal, if brief, kind of interlude there. What was his impact? He wasn't Mughal, right?
No, not Mughal, but incredibly impactful despite his relatively short rule. Sher Shah Suri introduced the rupee, which became a standard currency. He developed a robust land revenue system, improving administration. And notably, he renovated the Grand Trunk Road, the GT Road, which still exists today, vastly improving communication and trade.
So he laid some groundwork.
Absolutely. His reforms really laid some of the administrative foundations the Mughals would later build upon, but the Mughals, they truly expanded and consolidated power. And one of the most impactful figures there was Jalal-ud-Din Muhammad Akbar.
Akbar the Great, of course. Everyone's heard of him.
Indeed. Ruled for an astonishing 49 years, one of the longest reigns in Indian history. What's surprising about Akbar, though, is that he was illiterate.
Illiterate. Really, but known for his wisdom.
Exactly. Yet he maintained a collection of 24,000 books and regularly had them read to him. Tells you a lot about his intellectual curiosity, his approach to knowledge. He was a visionary, established schools for both Muslims and Hindus, promoting a more, secular and liberal country for the time. He outlawed the practice of sati, legalized widow remarriage. Quite progressive social outlooks.
Then he introduced Din-i-Ilahi.
Yes, Din-i-Ilahi. What was that exactly? It was essentially this philosophy and ethical system he championed, aimed to combine elements from various religions, Islam, Hinduism, Jainism, Zoroastrianism, with an emphasis on universal truth.
So not quite a new religion.
More like a personal, spiritual quest for Akbar, I think. Reflecting his deep interest in religious tolerance and understanding, rather than forcing a new religion on the empire. He also kept strong diplomatic ties with the Ottoman Empire, with the Portuguese. And his era is marked by these iconic monuments: Agra Fort, Humayun's tomb, Fatehpur Sikri.
A fascinating look at a truly unique ruler. After such a long and impactful reign, how did his successors carry things forward? Did they maintain that vision?
Well, his son, Nur-ud-Din Muhammad Salim Jahangir, he followed, known for establishing the chain of justice outside his palace, a symbol of his commitment to, accessibility for petitioners. Interestingly, despite banning wine and alcoholic drinks, our sources indicate he was an alcoholic himself, a revealing contradiction.
Human, I suppose.
Quite. He also controversially ordered the execution of the Sikh guru Arjan Dev. Now, this seems primarily politically motivated. The guru had supported Prince Khusram Mirza's rebellion against Jahangir.
Right, politics mixing with religion there. And then the engineer Badshah.
Precisely. Shahabuddin Muhammad Khurram, better known as Shah Jahan. The engineer Badshah, his reign defined an era of absolutely magnificent architecture. He's, of course, immortalized by the Taj Mahal, built for his beloved wife, Mumtaz Mahal, with whom he had 14 children, believe it or not.
14.
7 survived. But his architectural legacy goes far beyond the Taj. He also constructed the Red Fort, Jama Masjid, Wazir Khan Masjid in Lahore, Shalimar Garden, and the Shah Jahan Mosque down in Thatata in Sindh. That one's famous for its amazing acoustics and unique lack of minarets.
Incredible output. But wasn't there a darker story about the builder's hands?
Yes, that shocking theory about him ordering the chopping off of 20,000 builders' hands. While it's a persistent story, some historical theories suggest this might have been related to necessary amputations, perhaps, to prevent infection from working with marble rather than a deliberate act of cruelty. Still grim, but maybe not quite as sadistic as the legend suggests.
A truly grand, if maybe at times brutal, reign. How did it end for Shah Jahan? Not peacefully, I gather.
No. His reign ended in a dramatic power struggle. He was eventually deposed and imprisoned by his own son, Muhyi-ud-Din Muhammad Aurangzeb, for 8 long years. Aurangzeb himself then became the last truly effective ruler of the Mughal Empire. Reigned for 48 years until 1707.
Another long reign.
Very long. He compiled the Fatawa-i-Alamgiri, a huge legal text, and he ruled over nearly the entire Indian subcontinent, at a time when India was the world's largest economy and its biggest manufacturing power.
Really? Biggest economy?
According to the sources, yes. Aurangzeb was deeply religious, memorized the Quran, studied Hadith, implemented Sharia law, and reinstated the jizya tax.
The jizya tax, could you explain that a bit more for us?
Certainly. The jizya was basically a per capita tax levied by Islamic states on certain non-Muslim subjects. Typically, this was in exchange for protection and exemption from military service. Its reinstatement by Aurangzeb was and remains quite controversial.
How so?
Well, some see it as a clear move to assert Islamic dominance. Others interpret it more as fiscal measure, part of his broader religious reforms. He also built the stunning Badshahi Mosque in Lahore in 1673, one of the largest mosques in the world. Our sources highlight a really complex picture of his rule regarding religious tolerance. On one hand, he controversially ordered the destruction of some Hindu temples.
Right.
But on the other hand, he also paid for the maintenance of other temples and employed Hindus in high positions within his court. So it's not a simple picture. He was also notably less supportive of the Ottoman Empire than previous Mughals, declining to wage war against Christians, suggesting maybe a focus on his own imperial consolidation.
That's a remarkable journey through the Mughal era, showing both their incredible grandeur and perhaps the seeds of their eventual decline. As that central authority began to weaken after Aurangzeb, it wasn't long before another power, this one from across the seas began to exert its influence, kind of stepping into the vacuum.
Indeed. After Aurangzeb's death in 1707, the Mughal Empire began its slow, almost inevitable decline. You see many shorter reigns, a rapid succession of emperors, and this gradual erosion of central control. Various regional states started asserting their independence.
Creating a power vacuum.
Precisely. And that's exactly where the British East India Company, the EIC, enters the scene in a much bigger way.
That raises such an important question, doesn't it? How did a trading company, just a company, become such a dominant political and military force? And so quickly, it seems.
It's a remarkable and, frankly, quite a ruthless transformation. It reveals a lot about the dynamics of the era. The EIC, established way back in 1600, started as a purely trading entity. But by the mid-18th century, it had built its own private army of 260,000 soldiers, larger than many European national armies at the time. They gradually moved from just establishing trading posts or factories, like their first one in Surat, to actively collecting taxes after annexing key regions like Bengal. And what's truly shocking, looking at our sources, is the devastating human cost of this shift. In the 2,000 years before British rule, India apparently experienced 17 recorded famines.
Okay.
In just 200 years of British India, there were 34 famines, killing over 10 million people, largely due to policies like forcing the cultivation of cash crops like opium instead of essential food grains.
Wow. That's a stark and horrifying contrast. It paints a very clear picture of the extractive nature of colonial power. What were some of the key conflicts that really cemented their control?
The Battle of Plassey in 1757 was a huge turning point. Robert Clive, leading the EIC forces, secured this victory against the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dawla, crucially aided by the defection of Mir Jafar, one of the Nawab's commanders.
Betrayal played a role.
A major role. And the sheer disparity in forces is telling. The Nawab supposedly commanded 50,000 men, though maybe only 12,000 actively fought against a British force of just 3,000.
It's quite a difference.
Then there were the Anglo-Mysore Wars, a series of 4 conflicts against powerful local rulers in the south. Here, Tipu Sultan, often called the Tiger of Mysore, really stands out.
Tipu Sultan, yes.
Yeah.
Known for his resistance.
And his innovation. He famously used rockets with a range of about 2 kilometers in battle. Truly advanced military technology for his time. But despite his ingenuity, he was ultimately martyred in the 4th battle, tragically outnumbered something like 4-1. And his pleas for help from Afghanistan, the Ottoman Empire, even France, they all went unanswered.
So after these victories, British control was rapidly expanding, really setting the stage for what many consider a monumental event, 1857.
Absolutely. The mounting tensions, the ever-growing British control, the resentment, it all culminated in this massive uprising, often called the Indian Rebellion of 1857. This wasn't just some localized skirmish, it was a watershed moment. Fundamentally reshaped the trajectory of the subcontinent.
How did this widespread rebellion actually begin, and what were its immediate consequences?
Well, the rebellion, also known as the Sepoy Mutiny or the Great Rebellion, the spark was primarily the refusal of Indian sepoys. These are the soldiers employed by the EIC to use new rifle cartridges.
Right, the infamous cartridges.
Exactly. Rumored to be greased with animal fat, specifically cow and pig fat, deeply offensive to both Hindu and Muslim soldiers, respectively. Key figures like Lakshmi Bai, the legendary Rani of Jhansi, Nana Sahib Peshwa, Rao Tularam, they rallied in support of Bahadur Shah II, the last Mughal emperor, who was really just the figurehead by then.
So he became a symbol.
He did. And he took ownership, perhaps reluctantly, of the mutineers' actions. This led to his trial on 4 counts and eventual exile to Rangoon in Burma, where he died in 1862. This event marked the definitive end of Mughal ceremonial rule and ushered in direct British crown rule. The EIC was dissolved and India came directly under the British government, fundamentally changing everything.
Right. So after 1857, we enter this new phase. British rule becomes more direct, more consolidated. But this period also ignited different movements, right, particularly among the Muslim population, seeking to adapt to assert their identity within this new colonial framework. Lord Macaulay famously introduced the English and Western syllabus, aiming to create, I think the quote is, a class of Indians, English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect.
That's the one, a controversial goal, to say the least.
But what's striking here is how certain leaders worked to carve out a distinct path for Muslims within this system.
That's right. This period saw the rise of crucial figures like Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and the whole Aligarh movement. Sir Syed's vision was incredibly prescient, really, to establish a modern system of education for Muslims in British India, one that integrated Western sciences with Islamic teachings.
A blend, not just assimilation.
Exactly. He founded the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental Collegiate School in Aligarh in 1875, which later blossomed into Aligarh Muslim University. This institution became truly foundational, empowering generations of Muslim leaders and intellectuals.
So he saw education as the key to upliftment, to empowerment for Muslims in this new era. What came next politically?
Well, from this intellectual awakening eventually emerged the All India Muslim League, founded in 1906. It actually originated from the All India Mohammedan Educational Conference, which Sir Syed Ahmad Khan himself had founded back in 1886. Led initially by Nawab Wakar-ul-Mulk, with Sir Sultan Muhammad Shah the Aga Khan III as its first president, the League quickly became a vital voice for Muslim political aspirations. And Muhammad Ali Jinnah, a crucial figure we'll definitely discuss more, he joined the League in 1913.
So the Muslim League starts articulating distinct political needs. What were some of the key developments around this time that maybe amplified these demands?
There were several really significant political developments. The partition of Bengal in 1905, for example, enacted by Lord Curzon, supposedly for administrative purposes. Right. It sparked massive protests. Hindus largely saw it as a deliberate move to divide and weaken them while empowering Muslims. This ultimately led to its reunification in 1911, thanks to the intense Swadeshi movement, that boycott of British goods, promoting indigenous products. Then you had the Simla Deputation of 1906, where 35 prominent Indian Muslims, led by the Aga Khan III, met Lord Minto, the viceroy. They specifically demanded greater Muslim representation in politics.
The direct advocacy.
And it worked, to an extent. This advocacy directly influenced the Indian Councils Act 1909, also known as the Morley-Minto Reforms, and this crucially granted Muslims the right of separate electorate.
Separate electorate. That seems like a really, really important moment. Yeah. How did the Muslim League and the main nationalist party, the Indian National Congress, interact during this time? Was it always adversarial?
Not initially, no. There were attempts at unity. The Lucknow Pact of 1916 was actually a landmark agreement between the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League. In a significant concession, Congress agreed to separate electorates for Muslims in this pact. And Muhammad Ali Jinnah, for his pivotal role in forging this unity, was famously given the title Ambassador of Hindu-Muslim Unity by Sarojini Naidu.
Wow. Ambassador of Hindu-Muslim Unity. That's quite a title, considering what came later.
It is. But this period of cooperation was relatively short-lived. As the push for self-rule grew stronger, so did the resistance against British control. And the different visions for what a future India should look like, well, they began to emerge much more sharply. Those Montagu-Chelmsford reforms of 1918, which introduced a sort of dual government system called Darky, they were clearly not enough to satisfy the growing nationalist aspirations.
And then came what many called the Black Act.
Yes, the infamous Rowlatt Act of 1919, a truly draconian law. It gave enormous powers to the police, allowing arrests without warrant, detention without trial, effectively suspending civil liberties.
A clampdown.
A major one. Muhammad Ali Jinnah resigned from the Imperial Legislative Council in protest, calling it fundamentally unjust. And Mahatma Gandhi responded by calling for satyagraha, his philosophy of nonviolent civil disobedience. The very same year, 1919, saw the horrific Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Brigadier General Reginald Dyer ordered his troops to fire on a large, peaceful gathering trapped in an enclosed space in Amritsar, killing almost 400 unarmed people. It's a tragedy, a stain, for which Britain has never issued a formal apology.
Never formally apologized. Those events must have truly intensified nationalist sentiment across the board. How did Gandhi's movement evolve after this?
The massacre absolutely fueled Gandhi's non-cooperation movement, which ran from 1920 to 22. It advocated for withdrawal from British institutions, courts, schools, government jobs, promoting self-reliance, like spinning your own cloth, Khadi, and boycotting English goods. Concurrently, the Khilafat movement from 1919 to 24 also gained significant momentum, especially among Muslims. It aimed to pressure the British government to preserve the authority of the Ottoman Sultan as the Caliph of Islam.
Right, the Caliphate.
But Turkey itself abolished the Caliphate in 1924 under Ataturk, which ultimately rendered the movement's core objective kind of moot.
So a period of intense activism, shifting alliances, different movements running in parallel. What about the British response to these rising demands for more control, for self-rule?
Well, the British sent the Simon Commission in 1928 to India to assess the working of the previous reforms and suggest new constitutional steps. But it was universally opposed by Indian leaders, Nehru, Gandhi, Jinnah, almost everyone. Why? Because it contained no Indian members at all.
Just British officials deciding India's future.
Exactly, seen as a huge insult to their aspirations for self-governance. In response to the Simon Commission, Indian parties tried to formulate their own consensus. This led to the Nehru Report of 1928, drafted mainly by Motilal Nehru. It proposed a federal government dominion status, but crucially, it did not provide separate electorates for any community.
So it rejected the separate electorates agreed upon in the Lucknow Pact.
Essentially, yes. And this was a critical sticking point for the Muslim League and for Jinnah.
And how did Muhammad Ali Jinnah respond to the Nehru Report's proposals then?
Jinnah responded decisively in 1929 with his famous 14 points. This formally presented Muslim demands, sort of a counterproposal. These included things like provincial autonomy, guaranteed one-third Muslim representation in the central legislature, the separation of Sindh province from Bombay Presidency, and constitutional reforms in the Northwest Frontier Province and Balochistan. It essentially laid out a clear framework for safeguarding Muslim political rights within any future Indian state.
A clear set of demands.
Meanwhile, Congress, also in 1929, at their Lahore session, declared Purna Swaj, complete self-rule, complete independence as their goal, signaling their unequivocal demand moving beyond just dominion status.
So the demand for self-rule was clearly gaining unstoppable momentum, but not without further violence, I assume.
Tragically so. The Kisakwani Bazaar massacre in Peshawar in 1930 saw British forces fire on unarmed protesters belonging to the Khudai Khidmatgar movement. Estimates range from 20 to possibly 400 killed.
Khudai Khidmatgar,
Meaning servants of God. It was a non-violent Pashtun movement, allied with Congress, led by Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, often called the Frontier Gandhi. These events just underscored the brutal realities of British suppression. In an attempt to find some kind of solution, the British convened 3 roundtable conferences in London between 1930 and 1932 to discuss constitutional reforms. The poet and philosopher Allama Iqbal notably joined the second and third conferences.
Did everyone attend?
No, participation was uneven. Congress boycotted the first and third conferences. Gandhi himself only attended the second one after the Gandhi-Irwin Pact. This really highlighted the deep political divisions and mistrust.
It seems like during this time around the conferences, the idea of a separate Muslim state really began to crystallize more formally.
It absolutely did. In 1933, a Cambridge student named Chaudhry Rahmat Ali published a pamphlet titled "Now or Never Are We to Live or Perish Forever." In it, he circulated the word Pakistan, P-A-K-S-T-A-N, for the first time among delegates at the Third Roundtable Conference.
Pakistan, where did that name come from?
He proposed it as an acronym derived from the initial letters of Punjab, Afghania, referring to the NWFP, Kashmir, Sindh, and the Stan from Baluchistan. It was a proposal for a new, distinct Muslim state in the Northwest. Then came the Government of India Act 1935, a major piece of legislation. It separated Sindh from Bombay, separated Burma from India altogether, and established federal and provincial public service commissions, introduced provincial autonomy.
Sounds significant. Was it accepted?
Not really, no. It was far from satisfying for the major parties. Jinnah famously called it thoroughly rotten, fundamentally bad, and totally unacceptable. Nehru dismissed it as a machine with strong brakes but no engine. Shows you the deep discontent with its limited reforms and the extensive powers still retained by the British governors.
Clearly didn't quell the calls for self-determination then. What happened in the elections held under this act?
In the 1937 Indian provincial elections, Congress performed very strongly, winning power in most provinces. The Muslim League, however, performed relatively poorly, only securing about 109 out of the 482 seats reserved for Muslims. Crucially, it wasn't able to form a provincial government on its own anywhere.
That must have been a significant blow.
It was. This result significantly heightened the League's fears about Muslim political marginalization in a potential future Hindu-majority independent India. It arguably pushed them further towards the demand for a separate state.
So the lack of electoral success in 1937 must have been a real turning point for the Muslim League's strategy. What happened when World War II broke out just a couple years later?
When World War II began in 1939, the Viceroy, Lord Linlithgow, unilaterally declared India at war on behalf of the British Empire, without consulting any Indian political leaders.
Unilaterally. Ouch.
Big mistake. Congress was deeply unhappy about this lack of consultation and demanded a clear statement of war aims and India's future status. When that wasn't forthcoming to their satisfaction, their ministries in the provinces resigned in protest. Jinnah, seeing a political opportunity, called for honorable cooperation from Muslims in the war effort, positioning the League as more cooperative. And he declared a day of deliverance in December 1939, celebrating the resignation of the Congress ministries, a clear signal of the growing divergence, the deepening rift between the two main political entities.
Day of deliverance. That's stark language.
It was. And this growing divide culminated, really, in the resolution of Pakistan, passed on March 23rd, actually celebrated March 24th, 1940, at the annual session of the All India Muslim League in Lahore. This resolution formally advocated for geographically contiguous units in the northwestern and eastern zones of India, where Muslims were numerically a majority, to be grouped to constitute independent states in which the constituent unit shall be autonomous and sovereign.
The Lahore Resolution. So the demand for Pakistan was now official policy for the League. How did the British react to this escalating political landscape, especially with the war still raging?
Well, in 1942, with the war going badly for the Allies in Asia, the British sent the Cripps mission to India. headed by Sir Stafford Cripps. It offered Indian political cooperation in the war effort in exchange for a promise of elections and full self-government dominion status after the war, with the option for provinces to opt out of the Indian Union.
Did that work?
No. Both major parties, the Muslim League and Congress, rejected it for different reasons. Congress wanted immediate independence, not just a post-war promise. The League felt it didn't explicitly guarantee Pakistan. In response to the failure of the Cripps mission, Mahatma Gandhi launched the Quit India movement in August 1942, demanding an immediate end to British rule. Do or die was the slogan. The British responded with mass arrests, including Gandhi and the entire Congress leadership.
So, intense confrontation. What happened towards the end of the war?
As the war ended, the British Labour government, elected in 1945, was keen to transfer power. They sent the 1946 cabinet mission to India. This high-powered mission aimed to discuss and plan the transfer of power. It proposed a complex three-tiered structure: provinces, groups of provinces, 2 potential Muslim majority groups, 1 Hindu majority, and a minimal central government handling only foreign affairs, defense, and communications.
A compromise, maybe?
It was an attempt, but ultimately both the League and Congress accepted it initially with differing interpretations and then rejected aspects of the proposals, leading to further deadlock and mistrust. This unresolved tension, the failure to find a constitutional settlement, tragically erupted on Direct Action Day, August 16, 1946. Called by Muhammad Ali Jinnah to press the demand for Pakistan, it led to widespread, horrific communal riots starting in Calcutta, horrifyingly known as the Great Calcutta Killings. Violence spread to other areas, too.
But sounds like an incredibly volatile, tragic period.
Huh.
Were there any further elections during this time before independence?
Yes. Crucially, the 1946 Indian provincial elections were held late in 1945 and early 46. This time, Congress again won most of the general seats, securing 923 seats overall. But the Muslim League won overwhelmingly in the Muslim reserved seats, capturing 425 out of 492 seats reserved for Muslims.
A much stronger showing for the League.
A massive improvement. This demonstrated the League's strong mandate among Muslim voters, solidifying its claim as the sole representative of Muslim interests. It allowed them to form governments in Sindh and Bengal. The election results made partition seem almost inevitable. The stage was undeniably set for the momentous and bloody year of 1947.
The stage was indeed set for 1947, a year that would just reshape the map of South Asia forever. The British decision to finally transfer power led to the 3 June Plan, often called the Mountbatten Plan, named after the last viceroy. This brought about the birth of 2 new nations, India and Pakistan. But the process, as you've mentioned, was anything but smooth.
It was a truly tumultuous birth, chaotic, rushed, and deeply violent. The 1947 Indian Independence Act, passed by the British Parliament, officially divided British India into 2 independent dominions. India and Pakistan, effective from August 15, 1947, Pakistan celebrated on the 14th. This monumental decision also dealt with the 565 or so princely states. They weren't directly ruled by Britain, but under British paramountcy. They were given the choice to accede to either India or Pakistan, or theoretically remain independent, though that wasn't really encouraged.
And that caused problems.
Huge problems. States like Junagadh and Hyderabad, with Hindu majorities but Muslim rulers, and Kashmir, with a Muslim majority but a Hindu ruler, their accession became immediate points of conflict. Notably, Kalat in Balochistan was the last major state to accede to Pakistan, doing so on March 27, 1948, under considerable pressure. The actual demarcation of the boundaries, especially for Punjab and Bengal, was entrusted to commissions chaired by a British lawyer, Sir Cyril Radcliffe. He had little prior knowledge of India.
Radcliffe. The Radcliffe Line.
Exactly, leading to the highly contentious Radcliffe Award. This hurried, often arbitrary line drawing, based on outdated maps and census data, cut through villages, communities, even houses. It resulted in one of the largest, most rapid, and bloodiest mass migrations in human history. Estimates suggest around 14.5 million people crossed the newly drawn borders, Muslims fleeing to Pakistan, Hindus and Sikhs fleeing to India, often amidst horrific communal violence. The death toll estimates vary wildly, from several 100,000 to possibly 2 million.
An incredible, tragic human cost for a political decision made so hastily. So Pakistan was born amidst this chaos. Who were the immediate leaders tasked with building this new nation?
Pakistan's first cabinet took oath on August 15, 1947. Liaquat Ali Khan became its first prime minister. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, revered as the Quaid-e-Azam, the great leader, became Pakistan's first governor-general, the head of state. Under Jinnah's leadership, Pakistan quickly sought international recognition, becoming a member of the United Nations Organization on September 30, 1947. He also inaugurated the State Bank of Pakistan on July 1st, 1948, laying the foundations for the new nation's financial system. And Pakistan's first postage stamp was issued just a few days later. Small steps, but symbolic ones.
Building from scratch.
Absolutely. But the initial euphoria of independence was very quickly marred by conflicts, specifically the Indo-Pakistani War of 1947-1948, often called the First Kashmir War.
How did that conflict erupt so soon after independence? Almost immediately.
It began in October 1947, just weeks after partition. Pashtun tribal militias from Pakistan's northwest crossed the border into the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. The state's Hindu ruler, Maharaja Hari Singh, who had initially hesitated on accession, subsequently requested military assistance from India and signed the Instrument of Accession to India. Indian troops were airlifted to Srinagar, escalating the conflict. The war eventually ended with a UN-brokered ceasefire, leading to the Karachi Agreement of 1949. This established a ceasefire line, later designated as the Line of Control, closed after 1971. It left Kashmir divided, a flashpoint that continues to define regional tensions, suspicion, and conflict even today.
Right. So with independence achieved, partition trauma ongoing, and immediate conflict over Kashmir, Pakistan then faced the enormous task of nation building, especially framing a constitution. This must be where we see those intense debates about the very identity of the new nation, the core principles it would embody: Islamic State, secular state, federal, centralized.
Indeed, the early years were absolutely dominated by this flurry of constitutional debate, grappling with these fundamental questions of identity and governance. A key early step was the Objective Resolution, presented by Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan and passed by the Constituent Assembly in March 1949.
What did that resolution say?
It was a foundational document meant to outline the guiding principles for the future constitution. It declared that sovereignty over the entire universe belongs to Allah Almighty alone, but He has delegated authority to the state of Pakistan through its people. It emphasized Islamic principles like democracy, freedom, equality, tolerance, and social justice, while also promising safeguards for minorities. It was a blend, trying to bridge Islamic identity with modern democratic ideals. Following this, the Basic Principles Committee was formed in 1949, tasked with actually drafting the Constitution based on the Objective Resolution. On the international front, the Liaquat-Nehru Pact of 1950 was signed, a bilateral treaty between India and Pakistan. It aimed to address critical issues of refugees, abducted women, recovery of property, and safeguarding minority rights in both countries after the partition violence.
So they're laying the groundwork for governance, both internally and with India. But this period also seems fraught with political instability, even beyond the constitution making.
It was a very turbulent time, yes. The Rawalpindi conspiracy case of 1951 really rocked the nation. It was essentially a coup d'etat attempt against Liaquat Ali Khan's government, allegedly led by Major General Akbar Khan, along with several other military officers and some left-wing civilians. Even the prominent poet Faiz Ahmad Faiz, who was editor of the Pakistan Times, was implicated and jailed.
A coup attempt so early on?
A sign of the deep tensions. And then, tragically, Liaquat Ali Khan himself was assassinated later that same year in October 1951 while addressing a public rally in Rawalpindi, a major turning point, a huge blow that plunged the young nation into further political uncertainty. Khawaja Nazimuddin, who was Governor General, then stepped down to become Prime Minister, but he was himself dismissed in 1953 by the then Governor General Malik Ghulam Muhammad, a former bureaucrat. This dismissal came after severe anti-Ahmadiyya riots in Lahore and also the Bengali language movement riots in Dhaka, East Pakistan, revealing these deep internal ethnic and religious divisions.
It sounds like a real revolving door of leadership, instability at the top. How did they try to stabilize the constitutional process amidst all this?
Well, Muhammad Ali Bogra, who became prime minister after Nazimuddin in 1953, he presented what became known as the Bogra formula for the constitution. This proposed a complex bicameral legislature with representation designed to balance the power between East and West Pakistan. It also crucially declared both Urdu and Bengali as national languages, a significant attempt at compromise to address the grievances of the Bengali-speaking majority in East Pakistan.
Did it work?
Not quite. Bogra also introduced the controversial one-unit scheme in 1954, aiming to merge the 4 provinces of West Pakistan into a single administrative unit, partly to create parity with East Pakistan. But before his formula could be fully adopted, the Constituent Assembly itself was dissolved in October 1954 by Governor General Malik Ghulam Muhammad, further derailing the constitution-making process. This period saw a really pivotal legal challenge: Federation of Pakistan v. Maulvi Tamazuddin Khan in 1954-55. Tamazuddin Khan, the president of the dissolved assembly, challenged the Governor General's action. The Chief Justice of the Sindh High Court, George Constantine, initially ruled in favor of Tamazuddin Khan, a brave decision.
Upholding parliamentary power.
But the federal court, under Chief Justice Muhammad Munir, later controversially overturned this decision. They invoked the doctrine of necessity and upheld the Governor General's power, setting a dangerous precedent for executive overreach and undermining parliamentary democracy in Pakistan.
A truly challenging period for establishing democratic norms then. Who emerged next from this political chaos?
Iskander Mirza, who had been involved in Ghulam Muhammad's actions, became the acting governor general, and subsequently, under the new framework, became the first elected president of Pakistan when the constitution was finally adopted. Under his watch, the Constitution of 1956 was finally promulgated on March 23, 1956, a major milestone. This constitution declared Pakistan an Islamic republic. It recognized both Urdu and Bengali as national languages. It established a federal system and a unicameral parliamentary legislature. The president, however, still held significant powers, including the power to dismiss the prime minister.
So finally, a constitution. Did it bring stability?
Sadly, this constitutional stability was very short-lived. Politics remained fractious, with frequent changes of government. On October 7, 1958, President Iskander Mirza, citing political instability, declared martial law, abrogated the 1956 Constitution, dismissed the central and provincial governments, and appointed General Ayub Khan, the army commander-in-chief, as the chief martial law administrator.
Abrogated the Constitution just 2 years later.
Just 2.5 years later. And then, just 20 days after that, Ayub Khan forced Mirza himself out and sent him into exile. Ayub Khan took full control of the country as president.
So, after less than a decade of turbulent democracy and constitution-making, Pakistan was under direct military rule. What characterized Ayub Khan's long presidency?
Ayub Khan's rule, which lasted from 1958 to 1969, was a period of strong, centralized authority, often described as a decade of development. He was the only field marshal in the history of the Pakistan Armed Forces and became the country's longest-serving president, holding office for over 10 years. He combined the offices of president and prime minister, and crucially, he obtained judicial validation for his military takeover, again under that controversial doctrine of necessity from the Supreme Court led by Chief Justice Munir.
Doctrine of necessity.
Yeah.
That sounds like a concept that could be very easily misused, giving legal cover to coups.
It truly could, and many argue it was. It's a legal principle, essentially arguing that extraordinary circumstances like national emergency, a breakdown of order, or political instability justify actions outside the normal constitutional framework. It provided a legal veneer for his military takeover, a precedent that unfortunately recurred several times in Pakistan's political history. Ayub Khan launched several key initiatives focused on economic development and modernization. Price controls, land reforms, though limited, the establishment of a new capital city, Islamabad, the construction of major infrastructure like Mangalatiram, and initiating the Karachi Steel Mills project.
So development was a focus. What about the political system?
He introduced the basic democracy system in 1959. This was a 4-tier system of local government, union, tehsil, district, division councils, with members elected at the lowest level. But controversially, these 80,000 basic Democrats also formed the Electoral College used to elect the president and the national provincial assemblies under his new constitution, heavily concentrating power and limiting direct suffrage. His constitution of 1962 established a presidential form of government, concentrating power in the president's hands, with a unicameral legislature indirectly elected via the Basic Democrats.
Yeah.
Interestingly, it initially changed the country's name from Islamic Republic of Pakistan back to just Republic of Pakistan, though this was quickly amended back due to public pressure. It also referred to principles based on Islam rather than specifically Quran and Sunnah.
Interesting nuances.
It was also during his rule in 1964 that television broadcasting began in Pakistan, with the first live transmission from Lahore. In the controversial presidential elections of 1965, held under the basic democracy system, Ayub Khan won against Fatima Jinnah, the sister of the nation's founder, securing 63.3% of the Electoral College vote amidst allegations of rigging.
That's quite a transformation from the early democratic hopes to such an authoritarian system. After Ayub Khan's long rule ended amidst protests, who took the reins?
Now, Ayub Khan, facing widespread protests, eventually handed over power not according to his own constitution, but back to the military. He made General Yahya Khan the army commander-in-chief, the chief martial law administrator in March 1969. Yahya Khan then promptly abrogated the 1962 constitution and took office as president. Yahya Khan, however, did introduce the Legal Framework Order, LFO, in 1970. This was a really significant move. It dissolved the unpopular one-unit scheme, restoring the old provinces of West Pakistan. And crucially, it paved the way for the first direct general elections based on universal adult franchise in Pakistan's history, scheduled for December 1970.
The first ever direct elections. That must have been huge. But this was also the time of rising tensions with East Pakistan, right? Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's 6 points.
Exactly. During this time, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the charismatic leader of the Awami League Party in East Pakistan, presented his famous 6 points demand for provincial autonomy.
What were these 6 points, and why were they so significant, so controversial?
Mujib's 6 points essentially advocated for a radically decentralized federal parliamentary system. They demanded that the central government's powers be limited strictly to just foreign affairs and defense, and potentially currency, subject to conditions. They called for separate currencies or fiscal policies for the two wings, provincial control over taxation and revenue collection, separate foreign exchange accounts, and even authority for East Pakistan to raise its own militia or paramilitary force.
Wow, that sounds like almost confederation, not federation.
It was seen as such by many in West Pakistan, as a step towards secession. These points reflected deep-seated, long-standing grievances in East Pakistan regarding economic disparity, political underrepresentation, and perceived dominance by the West Pakistani establishment. The 1970 Pakistani general election results were stunning and polarized. The Awami League, running on the 6 points platform, won a landslide in East Pakistan, capturing 160 out of 162 seats allocated to the East Wing in the 300-seat National Assembly. This gave them an absolute majority overall.
A clear mandate.
An undeniable mandate in the East. However, the Pakistan People's Party, PPP, led by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, emerged as the winner in West Pakistan, primarily in Punjab and Sindh, winning 81 seats. No party won significant support in the other wing. Tragically, the West Pakistani political and military establishment, including Yahya Khan and Bhutto, were unwilling to accept an Awami League government led by Sheikh Mujib based on the 6 points, fearing it would lead to the disintegration of the country. Negotiations failed. The National Assembly session was postponed indefinitely. This led to mass protests in East Pakistan, a brutal military crackdown by the Pakistan Army starting in March 1971, a declaration of independence by Bengali nationalists, civil war, Indian intervention, and ultimately the emergence of Bangladesh as an independent nation in December 1971.
A tragic, violent end to united Pakistan. What happened to Yahya Khan?
Following Pakistan's military defeat and the loss of East Pakistan, Yahya Khan resigned in disgrace. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, whose PPP was now the largest party in the remaining West Pakistan, took over as president and the first civilian chief martial law administrator.
And what did Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's leadership bring to this now smaller, fragmented nation?
Zulfikar Ali Bhutto served as president and later prime minister under a new constitution in 1973, from 1971 until he was overthrown in a military coup in 1977. His tenure began in the shadow of immense national trauma and defeat. He formally recognized Bangladesh in 1974, acknowledging the reality of the newly independent state. He also hosted the second summit of the Organization of the Islamic Conference, OIC, in Lahore in 1974, a major event that helped bolster Pakistan's standing and identity within the Muslim world. Crucially, following the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971, he signed the Simla Agreement in 1972 with India's Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. This was a peace treaty aimed at normalizing relations. It converted the 1949 ceasefire line in Kashmir into the line of control, LAC, agreeing to resolve disputes peacefully and bilaterally. A landmark agreement, though the Kashmir dispute itself remained unresolved.
So what does this all mean for us today? This deep dive, it's really taken us through centuries of, well, shifting power, grand visions, devastating conflicts, and the tumultuous birth and early years of the nation. From the architectural marvels and complex governance of the Mughals, through the harsh realities and resistance under colonial rule, to the intense constitutional debates and political instability of early Pakistan. Every single event we've discussed, it seems, left an indelible mark on the region and its people.
It absolutely did. And this deep dive, I think, it reveals this constant, powerful interplay between internal dynamics, ethnic, religious, political, and external influences, whether invaders, colonizers, or regional neighbors, all shaping the subcontinent's destiny. The persistent pursuit of distinct identities, whether religious or ethnic, the continuous, often fraught quest for stable and representative governance, and the profound, lasting impact of regional conflicts, especially over borders and resources. These are recurrent themes woven throughout this entire history we've traced. And this naturally raises a really important question for all of us to consider, looking back at this journey. In what ways do the seeds sown in this incredibly complex, layered history, the administrative structures inherited, the constitutional precedents set and broken, the unresolved identity debates, the lingering conflicts, in what ways do these continue to sprout and actively shape the political landscape, national narratives, and the societal tensions of the subcontinent today? And perhaps more importantly, how do these powerful historical echoes influence or maybe even constrain future aspirations for peace, development, and cooperation in the region?